Chapter 4585. You old man, do you still have any shame? Xiao Wanrong's face was full of disdain. Look at your appearance, then look at my precious grandson. He's so much more handsome than you. Hearing this, Di Linxian's face was full of dissatisfaction. I was also famous for being a handsome man when I was young. If not, would you have bowed down to my green robes? Look, Yu Jue, Xiaofeng, and Beichun, didn't they all inherit my excellent genes? That's enough. Only you have the nerve to say that. Xiao Wanrong rolled her eyes and then looked at Beichun with a gentle smile. My precious grandson, who do you think is more outstanding between your grandfather and me? As soon as she said that, Di Linxian also said, my precious grandson, you don't have to worry about feelings. Just say it directly. Di Beichun looked at the two happy elders in front of him, and the smile in his eyes gradually deepened. He couldn't resist these two elders at all and wanted to get close to them from the bottom of his heart. It turned out that his grandfather and grandmother were so interesting. Thinking about it, if he could grow up under their love, he would really be doted on. Although this is my first time meeting grandfather and grandmother, I could see that both of you were rare handsome men and beautiful women when you were young. Di Beichun said with a smile. Following Di Beichun's words, Di Linxian and Xiao Wanrong's faces bloomed like flowers. My precious grandson has good taste, haha. As she said that, Xiao Wanrong's eyes couldn't help but look around. After not finding the person she was looking for, she couldn't help but frown. Where's my precious granddaughter-in-law? Why don't I see her? Grandmother, sister-in-law, is treating mother. She's in the room now, Di Xiaofeng replied. I see. Xiao Wanrong suddenly understood. Yunqing's condition is indeed not good recently. How is she now? Hong Zhuang said that she can be cured, but she needs some time to recuperate. Di Beichun said in a low voice. Even with Hong Zhuang's medical skills, she still needed time to recuperate. It could be seen that her condition was really serious. Di Linxuan's eyes lit up. My granddaughter-in-law's medical skills are really outstanding. I heard from Dr. Wu that this condition is very difficult to treat. I didn't expect my granddaughter-in-law to have a way. This is really great. Previously, when they learned of this situation, they were very worried and immediately invited all the doctors that could be invited. However, the results still made them feel despair. They didn't expect their granddaughter-in-law to have a solution. It was really a surprise. I only knew that Hong Zhuang was a miracle doctor, but I didn't know that she was my sister-in-law. Even now, Di Xiaofeng couldn't help but sigh. This was a fated reunion. Just as they were talking, a graceful white figure walked out of the house. Bailey Hongzhuang performed acupuncture on Lin Yinqing after she fell asleep. However, as she said, Lin Yinqing needed some time to recuperate, and it would take a while for her to recover. Fortunately, the situation didn't worsen. This was already very good news. However, Bailey Hongzhuang just walked out of the house and found many people standing in the courtyard. She saw Di Yujue at first glance. Among these people, she only knew Di Yujue. Seeing Bailey Hongzhuang come out, Di Beichun quickly walked up to her. Wife! Bailey Hongzhuang smiled. Beichun, you're here too. Chapter 4586. The moment they saw Bailey Hongzhuang appear, the eyes of Xiao Wanrong and the others all lit up. With their experience, they had seen countless beautiful women, but this young lady in front of them gave them an indescribable feeling of amazement. She was devastatingly beautiful, a national beauty. The simple white dress was simple and elegant, but when she wore it, she gave off an otherworldly aura. She had a beautiful figure, graceful and charming, and her exquisite facial features were impeccable. This was a lady that would make people remember her at a glance. Xiao Wanrong and Di Linxian couldn't help but look at each other after seeing Bailey Hongzhuang. They had heard that their granddaughter-in-law was a rare beauty, but now that they saw her, she was even more outstanding than they had imagined. Not only them, Di Yujue also had a trace of astonishment in his eyes when he saw Bailey Hongzhuang, but it quickly turned into deep joy. When he first saw Lan Yinxiao and Mu Lingbing, he had already guessed that Bailey Hongzhuang was a beauty. When they were on Penglai Island, Bailey Hongzhuang had disguised herself in a more ordinary way, so he didn't expect her to be such a beautiful lady. Xiao Wanrong immediately went up to her, her kind and amiable face filled with a cordial smile. She reached out and grabbed Bailey Hongzhuang's small hand. "This is my precious granddaughter-in-law, right?" Xiao Wanrong smiled brightly, revealing her white teeth. "She's really beautiful. My precious grandson is really blessed to marry such a beautiful granddaughter-in-law. Io, look at her small hand. Her small face is so fresh. One look and I like her." Xiao Wanrong looked up and down at Bailey Hongzhuang, her bright eyes revealing two words: satisfaction. Bailey Hongzhuang was a little startled when her hand was suddenly grabbed, but when she guessed that this lovely old lady was Di Beichen's grandmother, she relaxed. Although it was only their first meeting, she could feel that this old man truly liked her. "Hongzhuang, this is my grandmother." Di Beichen introduced her with a smile. Hearing this, Bailey Hongzhuang smiled faintly and greeted, "Grandmother." "Sigh." Xiao Wanrong replied happily. "I really didn't expect that my precious grandson has already married such a beautiful granddaughter-in-law. I'm so happy today. Granddaughter-in-law, welcome back to the Di family. From now on, this will be your home. If you need anything, just tell me. Don't stand on ceremony." "Thank you, grandmother." Bailey Hongzhuang smiled brightly. She had thought that the people from the aristocratic families were more serious. She did not expect that the grandmother in front of her was more amiable than ordinary elders. She could not help but want to get close to her. "What are you thanking me for? This is what a grandmother should do." Xiao Wanrong smiled happily. She was really too happy. Her grandchildren and daughters-in-law were all back, and she liked them very much. Di Linxian also walked over. He was naturally not as close as Xiao Wanrong, but the smile on his face was similarly amiable. "Granddaughter-in-law, welcome back." "Grandfather." Bailey Hongzhuang smiled and greeted. Hearing this, Di Linxian also grinned. "Sigh. By the way, granddaughter-in-law, how is your mother now?" Xiao Wanrong could not help but ask. "Mother has fallen ill from accumulated depression over the years. It will take some time for her to recover, but grandmother, don't worry. Mother's life will not be in danger." Chapter 4587. Although they had already heard Dr. Wu say it before, at this moment, after hearing Bailey Hongzhuang's affirmation, everyone was completely relieved. "Granddaughter-in-law, I never thought that you would have such amazing medical skills at such a young age." Di Linxuan's eyes were filled with disbelief. He understood Yun Qing's situation very well. So many doctors have been helpless, and only Dr. Wu had been able to think of a way to delay it. However, he had been unable to cure her. However, the young Bailey Hongzhuang was certain that she would be able to cure her. How could this not be shocking? Hongzhuang was the most famous divine doctor in the lower realm. Di Beichen proudly introduced, "If it wasn't for that, I wouldn't have been able to change my cursed body. I'm afraid that I wouldn't be able to see everyone now." Di Linxian and the others' gazes changed slightly when they heard this. A complicated feeling crept into their hearts. It had not been easy for Di Beichen to be able to return to the Di family. With so many problems, if there had been even the slightest deviation, he would never have been able to return. Di Linxian patted Di Beichen's shoulder as a light flashed in his eyes. "It's a good thing that the heavens have blessed you and allowed you to return safely." Xiao Wanrong continued to hold Bailey Hongzhuang's hand. "Granddaughter-in-law, our entire family would like to thank you. If it wasn't for you, Beichen wouldn't have been able to return alive. The Di family will always remember this great kindness." Di Yujue and Di Xiaofeng also looked deeply at Bailey Hongzhuang. Their hearts were filled with gratitude towards Bailey Hongzhuang. They would always remember this great kindness. Hearing this, Bailey Hongzhuang quickly waved her hand and said, "Grandmother, you're exaggerating. Beichen is my husband. This is what I should do." However, Di Linxian shook his head. "Granddaughter-in-law, your family has always taken good care of Beichen all these years. We understand everything. If it wasn't for your care, no one knows what would have happened. On behalf of the Di family, I would like to express my gratitude to you and your family. Since you have married into the Di family, We will not treat you unfairly. We will treat you as our own granddaughter. You can rest assured that this will be your home. If anyone dares to bully you, no matter who it is, I won't let them off." Lin Xian's expression was solemn and serious, and his words were extremely protective. Long ago, he had already made up his mind that this granddaughter-in-law was his biological granddaughter. Whoever dared to bully her, he would break their legs. Yujue and the others smiled when they saw this. This was not only what old Masterly was thinking, but also what they were thinking. Bailey Hongzhuang was inwardly moved. Her sparkling and translucent eyes flickered with light, and her eyes were faintly red. "Grandfather, thank you." Previously, she had been a little nervous and worried that the D family would not accept her. After all, prejudice against one's social status always existed. The larger the family, the more obvious the prejudice against social status. However, she never thought that old Master Li of the D family would say such words to her in such a serious manner. All of her previous worries disappeared in an instant and were replaced by a feeling of being overwhelmed by the favor. At this moment, she had truly fallen in love with this family. So this was Beichen's family. So they had long accepted her and treated her as a true family member. Chapter 4588. After Lin Xian finished speaking, the atmosphere became joyous and harmonious again. Ever since they found out about Beichen's death, the D family seemed to have been shrouded in a haze. They hadn't been able to relax for a long time. This day was undoubtedly the happiest day of the D family because they were finally reunited. Second brother and sister-in-law are both back. That's great. Di Xiaofeng was overjoyed. He was already very happy when he met Beichen. Now that he felt the joy of the whole family, he only felt that this joy was infinitely magnified. Xiao Wanrong looked at Beichen and Bailey Hongzhuang, who were standing together, then looked at Di Xiaofeng and said, "Xiaofeng, look, Beichen is your younger brother. Now that Beichen is married, as his older brother, you still haven't married. Don't you feel embarrassed?" Seeing that Xiao Wanrong suddenly changed the topic to him, Beichen also looked helpless. "Grandmother, you're always urging me. Now that Beichen is married, you should shift your attention to Beichen. Why are you urging me again? Beichen is naturally good in every way, but compared to this, you're really too slow." Xiao Wanrong put on a serious face. However, even if she, who had always been kind, put on a serious face, it wasn't very convincing. "Your grandmother is right." Lin Xian also nodded. "Xiaofeng, I see that you've been going out a lot these days. You said that you wanted to ask about Beichen. Now that Beichen is back, shouldn't you also focus on your marriage? Your grandmother has found many good girls for you. It's just up to you who you like." Seeing that his grandfather had spoken, Di Xiaofeng only wanted to cry for help. "Grandfather, I'm still so young. Why should I be anxious about this?" Di Xiaofeng sighed. "Besides, I'll find a girl I like myself. Why would I need you to do all this for me? Then bring back a granddaughter-in-law for me. All these years, I've been running around all day, but in the end, I didn't get anything." Xiao Wanrong sighed and shook her head. "Not bad." Lin Xian nodded. "The old man from the Xiao clan keeps telling me that his grandson is already married, but you're older than him, yet you haven't done anything. Fortunately, Beichen worked hard and brought back his precious granddaughter-in-law. The next time I see old man Xiao, I have to have a good talk with him." Beichen and Bailey Hongzhuang couldn't help but smile when they saw Lin Xuan's proud and elated expression. This old man didn't look like the head of the D family at all. He was just an adorable old man. Sure enough, old people are very cute. They actually know how to compare these things. Bailey Hongzhuang couldn't help but laugh. Most importantly, from Lin Xuan's serious expression, she could see that he and old man Xiao were really fighting over this point. "Grandfather, don't worry. Big brother should be here soon," Beichen said with a faint smile. Although Bailey Yunyan hadn't been together with Di Xiaofeng the last time they met, according to their judgment, it wouldn't be long. In other words, he would have another sister-in-law soon. Following Beichen's words, Lin Xian and Xiao Wanrong were both stunned. Even Yujue revealed a surprised expression. "Really, Xiao Wanrong looked at Di Xiaofeng expectantly. Chapter 45-89. Facing Xiao Wanrong's expectant eyes, Di Xiaofeng glanced at Di Beichun helplessly. However, Di Beichun just shrugged and gave him a look that said, "Take care of it yourself. Grandmother, don't worry. Are you worried that I won't be able to find a wife?" Xiao Wanrong glanced at Di Xiaofeng suspiciously. "With your sloppy appearance, I really do have some doubts." Di Xiaofeng's face fell. "Grandmother, I remember that before Beichun came back, you didn't say that about me. You used to praise me for being handsome. There must be a lot of young ladies chasing after me to marry me." "Did I say that?" Xiao Wanrong asked. Di Xiaofeng turned to look at Di Lin Xian. "Grandfather, help me testify. You're already so old and you haven't brought a wife back. It's not convincing at all," Di Lin Xian said seriously. Di Xiaofeng was speechless and placed his last hope on Di Yujue. "Father, should I not have brought Beichun back? Now that Beichun is back, my status has plummeted." Di Yujue only glanced at Di Xiaofeng. Isn't that natural? He could feel that not only did Di Xiaofeng's status drop, but so did his. Seeing that Di Xiaofeng was still unwilling to say who that lady was, Xiao Wanrong didn't ask anymore. She just smiled and teased Di Beichun. "I didn't expect you two brothers to have a secret. Forget it, forget it. I believe in Beichun. I'll just wait at home with peace of mind." Only then did everyone shift the topic away from Di Xiaofeng. "Beichun, Hong Zhuang, you must be tired from the journey back. Go and rest for a while. I'll get someone to prepare dinner." Xiao Wanrong looked concerned. "Your courtyard has already been built for you. Let's go take a look." When Di Yujue came back and told them that Beichun and Hong Zhuang had come to the upper realm, they had already built the courtyard and were just waiting for them to come back. However, when they found out that the two of them had died, they were unwilling to mention the courtyard that made them so sad. Who would have thought that things would take a turn for the worse, and this courtyard would come in handy? After hearing that the Di family had rebuilt their courtyard, Bailey Hong Zhuang and Di Beichun were also surprised. However, they were more surprised and touched. Although Xiao Wanrong said it very indifferently, such an action already showed that she welcomed them. "Grandmother, we also have a few friends who came with us," Di Beichun said. Previously, they were worried about Lin Yunqing's condition, so they immediately rushed over. As for Wen Ziren and the others, they were led to rest by the servants. Now that they were going to their residence, he naturally had to call them over. "Don't worry, I'll send someone to inform them," Di Yujue said with a smile. Di Beichun nodded slightly. Only then did he relax and follow everyone to their courtyard. "Your courtyard is right next to Xiaofeng's courtyard. It's very close. If you need anything and feel that it's not convenient to talk to us elders, you can contact Xiaofeng directly." Di Linxian smiled, and his voice was even more considerate. "Grandfather and grandmother even thought of this for us." Bailey Hongzhuang looked at Di Beichun. All of this made them feel incomparably warm. Di Beichun looked deeply at Bailey Hongzhuang. At this moment, his heart was also filled with gratitude. Chapter 45-90. Ever since they arrived at the Di family, when Ziren and the others had been led to the living room and served with good food and drinks. Originally, they wanted to know what happened to Di Beichun and his wife after they arrived. Unfortunately, they didn't get to see it with their own eyes. Although they were being served very comfortably, they were still curious about Di Beichun and his wife's situation. "I wonder what happened to Beichun and his wife." Shangguan Yingying stood up and paced back and forth in the living room. Her pretty face was filled with curiosity and worry. According to what Dr. Wu said, Beichun's mother's situation doesn't seem too good. "I'm really worried." Thinking of this, Shangguan Yingying's face showed a trace of helplessness. Di Beichun had finally returned to the Di family. If something happened to his mother right after he came back, it would be too sad. Since Hong Zhuang is here, with her medical skills, there shouldn't be a problem, right? Ziren frowned and said, "In the lower realm, Hong Zhuang's medical skills were top-notch. If it was before, he would definitely think that as long as Bailey Hong Zhuang was here, there wouldn't be any problem. Unfortunately, This was the upper realm and not the lower realm. The doctors here were definitely not comparable to the doctors in the lower realm. Since many of the doctors here couldn't think of a solution, it could be seen that the situation was very serious. You don't have to worry. According to what I know, Beichun is the second young master of the D family. A.O. Lingxiao's expression was very calm. It seemed that he wasn't worried at all. All these years, the D family has spent a lot of effort to find him. Now that he has finally returned, the D family will definitely welcome him. They definitely won't treat him badly. Indeed, from Beichun's father and Xiaofeng's behavior, we can see how much they value him. At this moment, Imo Yunjue, who had been silent all this time, also expressed his opinion. I'm not worried about Beichun, but I don't know if the D family will accept Hongzhuang. Hearing Imo Yunjue's words, Shangguan Yingying and Wen Ziren couldn't help but look at each other. Sure enough, even now, Imo Yunjue still cared so much about Bailey Hongzhuang. At this time, the first thing he thought of was Bailey Hongzhuang's situation. However, after Ma Yunju's reminder, they also thought of this point. I don't think the D family is that realistic. Hongzhuang has always been very nice to Beichun, Shangguan Yingying said thoughtfully. I don't know. A.O. Lingxiao spread out his hands with a helpless look on his face. It's hard to say what's going on in the big clans. However, I believe that with Beichun's regard for Hongzhuang, that kind of possibility shouldn't happen. That's true. Shangguan Yingying nodded. If the D family doesn't accept Hongzhuang, I'm afraid that Beichun will also give up on the D family. Just as they were guessing, a servant suddenly came to inform them to go to D Beichun's courtyard. Hearing this, the servant immediately stood up and walked out without hesitation. Bailey Hongzhuang and D Beichun walked to their own courtyard under the lead of Xiao Wanrong and the others. In their sight, it wasn't a simple courtyard at all. Instead, it was several rows of houses sitting together. The area was huge. From the surface, it could be seen that this place was newly built. Everything was brand new. Chapter 4591. Although it was an inquiring tone, Xiao Wanrong and the others were very confident. They had specially invited the best craftsmen to build this courtyard according to the style that young people liked the most. As long as there was a need, it could be said that everything was available here. Second brother, sister-in-law, this courtyard was specially prepared for you by grandfather, grandmother, father, and mother. They put in a lot of effort. When I first found out, I came to take a look. I have to say, even I can't help but be envious. Di Xiaofeng's face was full of envy. In order to make up for what they owed Beichun over the years, they had done almost everything they could. He believed that no matter who saw this courtyard, it was impeccable. Thank you, grandfather and grandmother. Thank you, father. A smile appeared on Di Beichun's face. To him, no matter where he lived, he didn't care, but he was very touched by everyone's kindness. Although his master had always treated him like his own grandson, he always had a trace of regret in his heart. Now that he felt the warmth of his family, all the regret disappeared completely. Come, let's go in and take a look, Di Linxian said. At the same time, the first elder rushed over with the other elders of the D family. Almost all the elders had a happy smile on their faces. Their eyes immediately fell on Di Beichun and Bailey Hongzhuang. Welcome back, second young master and second young madam, the elders said together. Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichun's eyes flashed with a trace of surprise. Then a happy smile appeared on their faces. Thank you, elders. I didn't expect the second young master to be so handsome. Second young madam is also a rare beauty. It's really delightful. The second elder's face was full of surprise. Originally, everyone was worried that the second young master had been wandering outside all these years. After returning to the D family, even if he wasn't used to it, it might be very uncomfortable. After all, different living environments created different people's personalities. All these years, everyone had been trying their best to find the second young master, but they were still worried, because no one knew how the second young master would grow up. As the saying goes, anything is possible. He could grow up to be an outstanding person, or he could grow up to be a scum. Everything was unknown. Although Diujue had said that the second young master was also very outstanding when he came back, everyone still had doubts in their hearts. Now that everyone had seen it with their own eyes, they were finally able to relax. That's right. When second young master and eldest young master stand together, it's obvious that they're real brothers. This is great. Our family is finally reunited. Di Beichen was also in a good mood at the moment. Ever since he saw Di Beichen and Bailey Hongzhuang, the corners of his mouth had never closed. Elders, let's have dinner together later to welcome Beichen and Hongzhuang back. Yes. Come, let's go in and take a look. Then, everyone walked into the courtyard together. Beichen, this is where you and your wife will be staying. Di Lin Xian pointed at the most conspicuous room and said, "We won't be going in. You two can go in and take a look later." Chapter 4592. Behind this is a cultivation room specially set up for you. Di Lin Xian pointed at the room behind him and introduced, "If you cultivate here, the concentration of elemental energy will be much higher than outside. Your cultivation speed will also be much faster. Not only that, there are many places suitable for cultivation behind this room. When the time comes, you two will go and take a look and you will find out." Di Lin Xian's face was filled with a loving smile, and there was a hint of mystery in it. He felt that it would be better for the two of them to discover these surprises themselves. After hearing that there was a cultivation room specially set up here, Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen were shocked. They had come into contact with this cultivation room before. If they cultivated here, their cultivation speed would definitely be much faster than outside. However, if they wanted to cultivate in the cultivation room, they would have to pay a hefty price. However, the courtyard that they were living in now had a cultivation room specially set up. How shocking was that? Most importantly, the concentration of elemental energy in the D family was already very shocking. If they set up a cultivation room in such an environment, one could imagine how fast their cultivation speed would be. "Master, your family is really generous." Xiaobai sat on Di Beichen's shoulder, and its little face was filled with amazement. They had never seen such generosity before. "Yeah, if I didn't come here, I'm afraid I wouldn't have seen such generosity at all." Xiaohei couldn't help but sigh. "Although I've never felt poor when I followed Master in the past, this is the first time I've seen such generosity. I suddenly feel that I'm so stylish." Xiaohei rubbed its soft fur. It was now a demonic beast with status. "Look at how proud you are." White Dragon in the Chaos Ring couldn't help but complain after seeing Xiaohei's proud look. "That's just how I am. What's wrong?" Xiaohei pouted. "You dare to say that you don't like this place?" Ever since White Dragon appeared, it felt very helpless. It was as if they didn't get along, and they would always argue with each other from time to time. "This place is really not bad. It's good for our cultivation." White Dragon shrugged and said. Then it's settled. After strolling around the courtyard for a while, Xiao Wanrong said, "The two of you must be tired from rushing over. There's still some time before night. Why don't you rest here for a while? I'll send someone to call you over at night. How about it?" "Thank you, grandmother. Why are you being so polite? But doing something for my precious grandson is what makes me the happiest." Xiao Wanrong happily touched Di Beichen's hand. Now, the more she looked at her grandson and granddaughter-in-law, the more she was satisfied with them. "All right, all of you should have a good rest here. In any case, we have already returned. There will be plenty of time in the future." Di Lin Xian also spoke out. "Have a good rest. If you need anything, just tell the servants. Don't worry about it." Di Yujua looked at Di Beichen with concern. Originally, he also wanted to drag the two of them to talk more. However, since the two of them came, there was almost no place for him to use his skills. Everything was said by the two of them. We will. Chapter 4593. After Xiao Wanrong and the others left, only Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen were left in the courtyard. The two of them smiled at each other and relaxed. "Beichen, I didn't expect your family members to be so nice. It seems that my previous worries were unnecessary." Her ink-black phoenix-like eyes twinkled with a bright luster. They were as bright as the Milky Way and carried a strong sense of joy and excitement. Looking at Bailey Hongzhuang's happy look, Deep Beichen smiled and pulled her in his arms. I feel very happy too. In fact, he had always known that Bailey Hongzhuang had been very worried that the person would not accept heaven. Even if he had comforted her, it would have been of no use. To him, family had been an unfamiliar word for so many years, but Bailey Hongzhuang was the most important person in his life. If the D family had any opinions about Hongzhuang, then he could very well leave his identity as a member of the D family, because nothing was more important than Bailey Hongzhuang. At the same time, he also understood why Bailey Hongzhuang was so worried and nervous. It was also because she cared about him and hoped that he could be with his family and have a happy ending. Perhaps people who truly loved each other were like this. They never wanted the other party to have any regrets. Even if they were the ones who got hurt, they did not care. Fortunately, everything was developing in a good direction. Just as they were talking, Xiren and the others were led to their courtyard by the servants. As soon as they arrived, they noticed Di Beichen and Xiao Wanrong standing in front of the door. Immediately, they quickened their pace and quickly walked to the two of them. Second young master, second young madam, your friend have arrived. Do you have any other orders? No, you can leave first. Yes. After the servants left, Xiren came up to them. His gentle face was filled with curiosity. How was it? What happened just now? When we were resting there, we were so curious that we almost died. Hurry up and tell us. Looking at Xiren's gossipy appearance, Deep Beichen only glanced at him before turning around and walking into the house. Then continued to be curious. As soon as he said this, Xiren almost vomited a mouthful of blood and immediately chased after him. Beichen, don't be like this. Tell us quickly and satisfy our curiosity. Bailey Hongzhuang looked at Di Beichen's back as he left. The smile in her eyes gradually deepened. She understood that Beichen might not be good at expressing such a scene. He had always been a man, but now that he had experienced such warmth, he must have felt something special in his heart. Hongzhuang, did their family bully you? Shangguan Yingying held Bailey Hongzhuang's hand, her face full of worry. Bailey Hongzhuang gently shook her head. No, their family members are very nice. They treat me very well too. Then I'm relieved. We were so worried about this before. Shangguan Yingying sighed in relief. But I think that since you're so outstanding, their family members have no reason to be dissatisfied with you. As soon as she finished speaking, Shangguan Yingying noticed the brand new and outstanding decorations in the house. Her eyes lit up and she could not help but exclaim, "Wow, the decorations in this place are so beautiful. This is the house of my dreams. Just thinking about it, it must be very comfortable for you to live here." Chapter 4594. The interior of the house was very elegant. It was simple but not monotonous. It was low-key and meticulous. With just one look, Bailey Hongzhuang fell in love with this place. Although she didn't have any requirements for a place to live, she could still tell at a glance that everything here was probably expensive. Wow, Hongzhuang, I'm so envious of you. Shangguan Ying looked at Bailey Hongzhuang enviously. This was the life of a young madam of a top family. How could she not be envious? Bailey Hongzhuang smiled faintly. She held Shangguan Yingying's hand and said, "What's there to be envious of? We're living here together. Yingying, if you keep talking like this, maybe your Xiren will get jealous." Ao Ling Xiao raised his eyebrows and mockingly smiled at Xiren. Shangguan Yingying waved her hand indifferently. "I'm telling the truth, but Xiren won't mind." Hearing Shangguan Yingying's words, the corners of Xiren's lips curled up. Just when he thought that his wife would really give him face, Shangguan Yingying's next sentence made his thoughts disappear completely. "Of course, even if he minds, it's useless." Hee. Ao Ling Xiao shrugged and smiled at Xiren. It was obvious that he was teasing him. "Beichun, you really won't say?" Xiren looked at Deep Beichun and asked again. "I won't say." "Forget it." Xiren glared at Deep Beichun and then turned his head. The curiosity in his eyes didn't diminish. "Then I'll go ask Hongzhuang." "Hongzhuang, tell us." Seeing that Xiren had turned his attention to her, Bailey Hongzhuang felt helpless. She then looked at Di Beichun and said, "Everything is fine. What you were worried about didn't happen." As soon as these words were spoken, everyone felt relieved. Actually, there's no need to worry about this at all. Just by looking at the residence that the Di family has prepared for Beichun, you can see how much they welcome Beichun back, Ao Lingxiao said with a chuckle. Mo Yunjue was as silent as ever. He was originally worried that the Di family would be dissatisfied with Bailey Hongzhuang. Now that he knew that none of this had happened, he was relieved. In fact, he also understood that Di Beichun's feelings for Bailey Hongzhuang were no less than his own. Thinking about it, if the Di family had any dissatisfaction with Bailey Hongzhuang, Di Beichun would have stood out immediately. Now we can be completely at ease. Xiren breathed a sigh of relief. When we came here before, we were worried that you were being chased. Originally, we thought that the process of coming to the Di family would be very difficult, but we didn't expect that the later part would be so smooth. Everyone nodded. They had the same thought. Previously, they only felt that the resistance was endless, and that the time of their return might be endless. Fortunately, Di Xiaofeng had appeared. However, they also understood that if the Di family hadn't found the traitor Di Kaiyuan, they probably wouldn't have gone to Rowan City so quickly. "Beichun, how is Aunt now?" Mo Yunju asked. "Yes, how is Aunt?" Shangwan Yingying also asked. "Her situation is a bit serious, but won't be fatal. She just needs some time to recuperate. Don't worry," Bailey Hongzhuang said with a smile. Chapter 4595. That's good. We can rest assured now. When Xiren nodded slightly, he and Di Beichun had been good brothers for so many years. Now that they were finally reunited, he was happy for Di Beichun. "We'll stay here for the next few days," Di Beichun said slowly. "There are cultivation rooms and other arrangements at the back. I'm sure our cultivation speed will be faster here. Why don't we take a look?" Hearing Di Beichun's words, the eyes of Xiren and the others lit up. When they arrived at the Di family, they felt that their cultivation speed would be extremely fast here. Especially when they arrived at the place where the direct descendants lived, their feeling became even stronger. In such a rich vitality environment, they were almost certain that they would be able to break through very quickly. What's more, there were cultivation rooms here. Needless to say, the speed of cultivation here would be far faster than usual. "That's great." Shangwan Yingying nodded excitedly. "After coming to the upper realm, almost all the cultivators here are stronger than us. It's quite unpleasant. Now that Beichun is the second young master of the Di family, he'll be surrounded by God's favored children. Naturally, we can't be too weak." Hearing this, everyone's expressions became more solemn. Ever since they came to the upper realm, this sense of urgency had been lingering in their hearts. After coming here, this feeling became even more obvious. Everyone knew that Beichun had been wandering outside for all these years. The cultivation environment here was quite different from the cultivation environment of the aristocratic families in the upper realm. However, when the time came for them to meet those cultivators, they would not care about this point. They would only see Di Beichun's identity as the second young master of the Di family. "Let's go and take a look," Bailey Hongzhuang said. Everyone immediately walked to the back of the courtyard. There were many rooms here, but the rooms related to cultivation were built together, which was very convenient. Immediately, everyone walked into the cultivation room. After entering, everyone realized that there was no difference between this place and the outside world. But soon, Di Beichun found a switch in the room. After he turned it on, everyone felt that the yuan qi in the air suddenly became rich. The more time passed, the denser the yuan qi became. Everyone could feel the increasingly dense yuan qi around them, and the shock in their eyes intensified. It's already 3 times deeper than the outside, and it's still getting deeper. How terrifying is this? Xiren couldn't help but exclaim. One must know that the concentration of yuan qi in the residence of the Di family's direct descendants was already several times that of the outside world. Now that the concentration of yuan qi here was several times higher, it was simply terrifying. Mo Yunju couldn't help but be shocked. The generosity of a great family was far beyond what they could imagine. If one cultivated in such an environment all year round, as long as they had a little talent, their achievements wouldn't be bad. Moreover, Bewitching had the heavenly mandate constitution. If he cultivated here, one could imagine his cultivation speed. Finally, when the concentration of yuan qi in the cultivation room reached 4 times that of the outside world, it stopped increasing. This is too scary. I feel that the yuan qi around me is condensing into a substance. I don't even need to cultivate. The yuan qi is automatically being absorbed. Chapter 4596. Ao Ling Xiao. Among us, you're the one who understands the situation in the upper realm the most. Shangguan Yinging looked at Ao Ling Xiao. Do the people here all cultivate like this? No wonder their strength is so terrifying. Ao Ling Xiao shook his head. The cultivators in the upper realm do know how to set up spirit gathering arrays. The energy in the cultivation area is much denser than in the lower realm, but the D family's extravagance is not something that can be seen everywhere. According to my understanding, even in the upper realm, it's not something that an ordinary person can set up. The D family definitely spent a lot of effort for Beichun. Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichun looked at each other. It seemed that they had underestimated everyone's intentions towards them. Maybe grandfather and the others also thought that with my current cultivation, there's a certain gap between me and the disciples of the other families, so they built this cultivation room. On one hand, it's also to allow me to raise my cultivation faster. Di Beichun said slowly. Although he had always been called a genius in the lower realm, he was very clear that after coming to the upper realm, this kind of halo should be thrown away. After all, none of the outstanding disciples here were simple. From Di Xiaofeng's cultivation, one could see the gap between them, and he had already changed his mindset. Although he fell behind in the past, as long as he worked hard, he would still have a chance to catch up. Bailey Hongzhuang nodded slightly. Let's take advantage of this time to cultivate properly. Originally, everyone was prepared to look at other cultivation areas after looking at the cultivation room, but after feeling the dense energy here, they didn't have any thoughts of leaving. Such a good cultivation opportunity naturally had to be grasped. Cultivating in this kind of environment, they were confident that they could break through to the next level as quickly as possible. However, when it was time for dinner, everyone still came out of their cultivation state. They could cultivate at any time. Today was Di Beichun's return, and the Di family's people were holding a welcome dinner for him, so they could not go. Through this banquet, Xiren and the others thoroughly understood how important Di Beichun was to the Di family. When Xiren and Shangguan Yinging were flabbergasted when they saw the Di family's old master and old madam being so affectionate towards Di Beichun. This situation was much more exaggerated than they had imagined. They were stunned by the way he kept calling them his precious grandson and his precious granddaughter-in-law. Looks like Beichun is not just a little spoiled. Look at that scene. Old Madam and Old Master only had eyes for Beichun and Hongzhuang. On the way back, Xiren recalled the scene as he walked. With Di Beichun's usual image and his adorable grandson, it was a huge contrast. We don't have to worry in the future. We could just rely on Beichun and Hongzhuang. We don't have to worry about food and clothing. Di Beichun glanced at Xiren. You didn't rely on my wife before. Xiren was speechless for a moment. Speaking of which, ever since they went to Penglai Island, they had been relying on Beichun and Shangguan Yinging. Otherwise, it would be very difficult to earn cultivation resources just by relying on them. After the banquet, the Di family's old master and the others also recovered from their joy and immediately sent someone to inform the Lin family. Chapter 4597. Previously, everyone had been immersed in the joy of Di Beichun's return. In such a short period of time, even some people in the family did not know about this news. It was only after the banquet had ended that everyone was completely certain that their second young master had really returned. Old Man Lin has ridiculed me over this matter many times over the years. However, the fault lies with the Di family, so I could only accept his ridicule. Now that Beichen has finally returned, they should be able to set their hearts at ease. Di Linshuan's eyes rippled with a complicated light. Although his words were filled with helplessness, there was a faint sense of guilt in his voice. This matter was indeed the fault of the Di family. A few days ago, Yinqing had fallen seriously ill, and we've already sent someone to inform them. Based on how much importance the in-laws place on Yinqing, they might already be on their way and will arrive very soon. Xiao Wanrong pondered and said, all these years, Yunqing's health has not been very good. This time, it's even more serious. The in-laws have been very worried. Actually, they had wanted to bring Yinqing back long ago, but Yinqing did not agree. As she spoke, Xiao Wanrong could not help but sigh. Yinqing is a good daughter-in-law. She should have been very happy, but it's a pity that something like this happened. As a result, Yinqing has been depressed all these years. I've seen everything, and I feel terrible for her. She only had this one daughter-in-law, and had always treated her as her daughter from the bottom of her heart. Originally, their family had been happy and harmonious, but ever since that incident, the situation had begun to change. They had not seen Yinqing smile for more than 20 years. Now that they thought about it, they really missed it. Old woman, don't think so much. Di Linxian slowly spoke. Didn't granddaughter-in-law say that Yinqing will recover slowly? It's a good thing that they still have a long life ahead of them. Although they haven't been very happy all these years, they can still make up for it in the future. Xiao Wanrong nodded slightly. That's true. Actually, Yujue has been very miserable all these years. He's the one who's suffering the most, but every time he comes back, he's chased away by you. Your temper is really... Hearing this, Di Linxian fell into silence. You always have this expression whenever we talk about this. Don't mention this again in the future. Got it. When Bailey Hongzhuang and the others returned to the courtyard, they once again entered the cultivation room to cultivate. It was not until the next day that Bailey Hongzhuang went to Lin Yunqing's residence. A large part of Lin Yunqing's illness was her heart disease. Therefore, Bailey Hongzhuang not only needed to treat her with medicine, but also needed to find a way to comfort her. Only by doing both at the same time could he recover faster. Dr. Wu had already taken the herbs that Bailey Hongzhuang had listed. He was actually very curious about what method Bailey Hongzhuang was going to use to treat Lin Yunqing. However, when he saw Lin Yunqing's mental state today, he could not help but be shocked. It had been a long time since he had seen Lin Yunqing with such a good complexion. Although she was still paler than ordinary people, she was obviously much better than her previous morbid state. Not only that, but Lin Yunqing also became more spirited, and her eyes became more spirited. Seeing that Bailey Hongzhuang had arrived, a smile immediately appeared on Lin Yunqing's face. Miss, you're here. Chapter 4598. Lin Yunqing looked at Bailey Hongzhuang with a gentle smile and said, I don't know if it's because you came, but I slept exceptionally well yesterday. When I woke up today, I felt that I haven't felt so energetic in a long time. Ever since she found out about Beichen's death, she had been having nightmares and had not had a good night's sleep. However, she had slept the entire night yesterday and felt much more comfortable. Hearing this, Bailey Hongzhuang smiled and said, That must be because Madam wants to know more about Beichen. Yesterday, she had given Lin Yunqing a pill to nourish her body. At the same time, she had combed Lin Yunqing's body with silver needles. However, the depression had been there for a long time, and she had only cleared it up a little. Fortunately, from Lin Yunqing's current state, her methods were effective. As long as this continued, Beichen and Madame would be able to meet in 2 days' time. The reason why she did not let them meet previously was because Lin Yunqing's body was too weak. She would not be able to withstand the slightest stimulation. Once Lin Yunqing could withstand it, it would be best to let Di Beichen meet her. Because, in this way, Lin Yunqing would not have any thoughts of dying. With Di Beichen's company, her recovery speed would be astonishing. Then what are you going to talk to me about today? Lin Yunqing looked at Bailey Hongzhuang happily. These days, She had felt that life was meaningless, and Bailey Hongzhuang's appearance made her understand that there were still things she wanted to know. Tell me about how Beichen and his wife met. Bailey Hongzhuang smiled. Regarding Di Beichen's past, she only knew about it from her grandfather's mouth. What she really knew was after she and Di Beichen met. You also know Beichen's wife? Lin Yunqing's eyes lit up as she asked. Bailey Hongzhuang nodded slightly yes. I heard that Miss Bailey is a very outstanding lady. It's a pity that I didn't get to see it with my own eyes. Lin Yunqing felt a wave of regret. How great would it be if her son and daughter-in-law could come back? Bailey Hongzhuang smiled faintly and immediately began to tell the story of how she met Beichen. Now that she thought about it again, she felt that it was very funny. She used to be the daughter of a general in an ordinary kingdom, but now they had come to another world. Such a change really made one sigh. Outside, Dr. Wu could hear Lin Yunqing's laughter from time to time. His calm face was filled with relief and sighs. The second young master indeed had good taste to find such a good wife. If it were anyone else, it would be very difficult for them to do what Bailey Hongzhuang did. After chatting for a while Lin Yunqing was taking a nap, Bailey Hongzhuang used the silver needles to help Lin Yunqing tidy up her depression before walking out of the room. Second young madam, all the herbs you need are here. Do you want to decoct the medicine? Dr. Wu looked at Bailey Hongzhuang and asked. Bailey Hongzhuang smiled and shook her head. Madam has been drinking medicine for such a long time. Presumably, she is already tired of it. If you let her drink it again, she might not be willing to accept it. Hearing this, Dr. Wu nodded. Indeed, Lin Yunqing was not willing to drink this medicine. In fact, if it was anyone else who drank this bitter medicine every day, no one would be willing. Chapter 4599. I'll go make some medicinal cuisine and add these herbs into the meal. I'm sure Madam will be more willing to accept it. Bailey Hongzhuang slowly said. Medicinal cuisine? Dr. Wu was a little surprised. There aren't many types of medicinal cuisine. It'll be difficult to incorporate all these herbs into the meal, right? Compared to taking medicine, medicinal cuisine was undoubtedly more acceptable. However, there are very few types of medicinal cuisine. At most, only one or two of these herbs could be made. Furthermore, making medicinal cuisine required a lot of effort. Bailey Hongzhuang smiled. I have a way. After saying that, she quickly walked out. At this time, Lin Yunqing was only taking a nap. Even if she helped to sort out the depression in her body, she probably wouldn't sleep for too long. She had to quickly prepare. Dr. Wu's eyes flickered as he watched Bailey Hongzhuang quickly leave. He was now more and more surprised by this second madam's methods. To be honest, there weren't many people who understood medicinal cuisine. Only doctors like them would have some understanding of it. However, most doctors weren't willing to spend time and energy in this aspect. However, based on the confidence on Bailey Hongzhuang's face, could she really incorporate all these herbs into the meal? One had to know that medicinal cuisine wasn't just about blending the herbs into the meal. The taste of the herbs had to be removed. At the same time, the side dishes couldn't affect the effects of the herbs. It was easy to say, but it was very difficult to achieve this. Thinking of this, Dr. Wu even wanted to follow her to take a look. However, he was already so old. It didn't seem appropriate for him to follow behind a young lady to see how she made medicinal cuisine. Therefore, no matter how curious he was in his heart, he still suppressed this idea and waited for Bailey Hongzhuang to finish preparing the medicinal cuisine before he took a look. Bailey Hongzhuang took the herbs into the kitchen. When the servants in the kitchen saw Bailey Hongzhuang, they were all shocked. Second madam, why did you come to the kitchen personally? If you need anything, just tell us and we'll get it ready. Everyone was terrified. Although it was the first time for many of them to see Bailey Hongzhuang, they knew that the second young master and second young madam had returned. Moreover, the second young madam was a rare beauty. From the moment Bailey Hongzhuang appeared, they didn't have to doubt. Such a beautiful woman, other than the second madam. Who else could it be? Looking at everyone's panicked expression, Bailey Hongzhuang smiled and waved her hand. I'm going to make some medicinal cuisine for madam. You don't have to worry about it. Just do what you need to do. Second young madam. How can this be? Everyone hurriedly voiced out. This was the second young madam of the family. How could they let her personally cook? Bailey Hongzhuang smiled. It's fine. I'm sure you're not familiar with this medicinal cuisine. Why don't I make it? However, I do need you to prepare some ingredients for me. Second young madam, please give me your orders. Then, Bailey Hongzhuang walked to the side and began to prepare the medicinal cuisine with practiced ease. Although she rarely cooked after transmigrating, her culinary skills were actually quite good. Back then, the old man in her family would sometimes act like a child. When he got older, he would inevitably need to take medicine. However, they were unwilling. Chapter 4600. Initially, the servants did not really understand the second young madam's temper. Now that they saw how the second young madam was seriously and skillfully making medicinal cuisine for the madam and how amiable she was towards them, they were relieved. At the very least, the second young madam was not a difficult person to serve. As Bailey Hongzhuang prepared one medicinal cuisine after another, a rich aroma filled the air. Everyone could not help but have a great appetite when they smelled the aroma. The second young madam's culinary skills are extraordinary. This medicinal cuisine looks, smells great. If we hadn't seen her putting the herbs in with our own eyes, how could we believe that this was a medicinal cuisine? The second young madam, who has returned from outside, is indeed different from the other young ladies from aristocratic families. How could the other young ladies from aristocratic families know how to cook? It's great that the second young master has returned, but the second young master and second young madam are both from the lower realm. They can't be compared to the disciples from the other aristocratic families. Some of the servants could not help but sigh. They knew very well about the competition between aristocratic families. Even though the elders rarely made a move, the competition between the younger generation had never been rare. There would be a competition almost every once in a while. The results also represented each person's reputation. Now that the second young master had returned, the news would definitely spread very quickly. By then, many people would want to test the second young master's standards. If the second young master's power was far inferior to others, he would probably be laughed at. There's nothing we can do about that. The second young master has just returned, so it's normal for his cultivation to be inferior to theirs. If they had stayed in the lower realm, they might not even be as good as our second young master. Of course, that's what we think, but they might not think the same. All in all, this matter is more troublesome. I heard that the second young master has the heavenly mandate constitution. Perhaps his cultivation will catch up after a while. Bailey Hongzhuang, who was preparing the medicinal cuisine, overheard the whispers. She sighed to herself. The situation was indeed as they had expected. The challenge that Beichun had to face after his return was not small. However, she believed that they would be able to face whatever the situation was. Even if they were looked down upon by others, it was not a big deal. It was not as if they had not experienced this before. As long as they worked hard, there was a chance for them to surpass others. After Bailey Hongzhuang finished preparing the medicinal cuisine, the servants followed her to Lin Yunqing's residence. As soon as they arrived, Bailey Hongzhuang discovered that Di Beiqin and Di Xiaofeng were both in the courtyard. "Why are you here?" Bailey Hongzhuang smiled at the two of them, obviously not expecting them to come out at this time. "We want to see how Mother's mother," said Di Beiqin's Di's Li's. "Is mother, S's mother, young master, S's mother's condition is gradually improving. Her mental state is a lot better today. If this continues, you will be able to see her in 2 days." Bailey Hongzhuang smiled. As soon as these words came out, Di Beiqin's eyes lit up. Until now, he still didn't know what his mother looked like. However, Di Xiaofeng's attention was completely attracted by the food behind Bailey Hongzhuang. "This food smells so good. Why haven't I eaten these dishes before?" Chapter 4601. Hearing Di Xiaofeng's words, Di Beiqin's attention was also on the food. The rich aroma was indeed very appetizing. Just looking at it made people drool. "This is the medicinal cuisine I prepared for Mother." Bailey Hongzhuang chuckled. Mother drinks medicine every day and is very resistant to medicine. I made it into a medicinal cuisine. I think Mother will like it. Perhaps she didn't need to be so meticulous with other patients, but Lin Yinxing had a mental illness. What she needed the most now was to make herself happy. As long as she was in a good mood, many problems would be easily solved. Moreover, she was Di Beichun's mother. She naturally had to take care of her. Sister-in-law, maid herself? Di Xiaofeng was surprised. He then looked at Di Beichun enviously. Second brother, you're really lucky. Sister-in-law's cooking is also so good. Di Beichun looked at Bailey Hongzhuang with bright eyes. In the past, he rarely ate the food prepared by Bailey Hongzhuang. In fact, they spent more time on cultivation and didn't have much time to be together. I'll take this medicinal cuisine in first. I hope Mother can eat more. Bailey Hongzhuang smiled. Sister-in-law, why don't I go in with you? I'll chat with Mother. Di Xiaofeng's face was full of joy. Isn't Mother lonely eating alone? She'll be in a better mood with me. Big brother, your real purpose shouldn't be this, right? Di Beichun looked at Di Xiaofeng and directly exposed his cover. Di Xiaofeng chuckled. I'll take this opportunity to try sister-in-law's cooking. Sister-in-law is already yours. No one can take her away. I'm just trying sister-in-law's cooking. You don't have to hide it, right? Di Xiaofeng raised his eyebrows. Di Beichun felt helpless. His big brother wasn't much older than him. Adding on his personality, he was really helpless. Big brother is right. It is indeed boring for Mother to eat alone. With you accompanying her, Mother's mood will definitely be better. Bailey Hongzhuang's lips curved into an elegant and charming smile. Right now, her mother's biggest concern was Di Xiaofeng. With Di Xiaofeng by her side, her mother would definitely be very happy. Then let's go in. Di Xiaofeng nodded and said to Beichun, Beichun, I'll have to trouble you to stay outside for now. After 2 days, we'll go in together. All right. As Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Xiaofeng approached, Dr. Wu also walked over. He had always been curious about what kind of medicinal cuisine Bailey Hongzhuang had prepared. When he saw Bailey Hongzhuang approaching, he immediately looked over. When he saw the delicious meal, his eyes were filled with surprise. Second young madam, did you mix those herbs into the food? At first glance, he could tell that the food tasted very good. It moved his taste buds. Even though he was used to eating delicacies, he couldn't help but want to move his chopsticks. The most important thing was that he didn't smell any medicinal herbs in the food. How did Bailey Hongzhuang do it? Yes. Bailey Hongzhuang smiled and nodded. I don't plan to tell Madam that this is a medicinal cuisine. Maybe it will be better. Hearing Bailey Hongzhuang's affirmation, Dr. Wu sighed in his heart. With second young Madam, there's really no need to worry about Madam's illness. Chapter 46:02. Lin Yinxing woke up after smelling a strong fragrance. When she opened her eyes, she found Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Xiaofeng were both there. It smells so good. Hearing Lin Yinxing's movements, Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Xiaofeng couldn't help but turn around with smiles on their faces. Mother, you're awake. Lin Yinxing nodded slightly. Xiaofeng, don't run outside this time. Yes. Di Xiaofeng smiled. I'll stay in the family this time to accompany Mother. By the way, Ying prepared a lot of delicious food for you. Come and try it. Di Xiaofeng looked at Bailey Hongzhuang. Before, Bailey Hongzhuang had already told him that for convenience, she directly used Bailey Hongzhuang's name in front of Lin Yinxing. After all, Lin Yinxing already knew Bailey Hongzhuang's name from Di Yujue. If it was her real name, she would have known it long ago. Hearing this, Lin Yinxing looked at the delicious dishes on the table, and a look of surprise appeared on her face. These were all made by Ying? Isn't that so? You've tasted our family chef's cooking. One look, and you could tell it's not their cooking. Indeed, Lin Yinxing smiled faintly. When she looked at Bailey Hongzhuang again, her gaze became gentler. Ying, thank you so much. She had never seen such a considerate girl who cared so much about her. This was a kind of concern from the bottom of her heart. She could feel it. It was really hard to imagine that such a young girl would care so much about someone like her who had one foot in the coffin. Originally, she didn't have any expectations of living. But ever since Bailey Hongzhuang appeared, she felt that her condition was much better. There was a big difference from usual. "Madam, you're too polite." Bailey Hongzhuang smiled. Right now, her biggest wish was for Lin Yunqing's condition to gradually improve. For this, she was willing to do anything. "Mother, come and try Ying's cooking." Di Xiaofeng smiled. "Yes, it won't be good if the food gets cold." Okay. Lin Yunqing smiled and sat down at the table with Bailey Hongzhuang's help. Ying, come and eat with us." Lin Yunqing gently called out. "Madam, you guys eat," Bailey Hongzhuang said. Lin Yunqing's expression turned serious. "These dishes were all prepared by you. Naturally, we have to eat them together. Otherwise, I would feel embarrassed to eat them." Ying, mother is right. Sit down and eat with us." There was a faint smile in Di Xiaofeng's eyes. Based on his understanding of his mother, he could tell that she liked Hong Zhuang very much from her behavior. If mother knew her daughter-in-law, she would be even happier. However, Di Xiaofeng's happy expression had another meaning in Lin Yunqing's eyes. When she heard that Bailey Hongzhuang was brought back by Di Xiaofeng, she found it very strange. After all, Di Xiaofeng had never brought back a woman in all these years. Now that Di Xiaofeng was at the age to get married, and Bailey Hongzhuang was a rare beauty, maybe the two of them were in love with each other. If Bailey Hongzhuang could become her daughter-in-law, that would be great. "Let me try this dish and see if it's really delicious." Di Xiaofeng chuckled and immediately put a piece of fish in his mouth. In the next second, Di Xiaofeng's eyes widened and he looked at Bailey Hongzhuang in surprise. Chapter 46:03. In fact, she hadn't cooked for a long time. Although she had a certain amount of confidence in her cooking skills, she couldn't guarantee that the taste would be the same as before. Di Xiaofeng stared at Bailey Hongzhuang, then gave her a thumbs up and nodded. "It's really delicious." Seeing Di Xiaofeng's expression, the smile in Lin Yunqing's eyes gradually deepened. It seemed that Xiaofeng really liked Ying. She knew that her son had always been very picky when it came to food. It wasn't easy to get him to praise it. However, it was so exaggerated now. If he didn't like it, she wouldn't believe it at all. In the next second, Lin Yunqing also took a bite. Then, her gaze also changed. "Auntie, is this food to your liking?" Bailey Hongzhuang asked with a smile. Lin Yunqing's face was full of surprise. She originally thought that everything Di Xiaofeng had said was just to make Bailey Hongzhuang happy. Now that she had tasted it, she realized that everything Di Xiaofeng had said was true. It was so delicious. Even the Di family's chef definitely couldn't make it. It was so delicious that she almost wanted to bite her tongue off. "Ying, I didn't expect your cooking skills to be so good. This is the first time I've eaten such delicious food," Lin Yunqing said bluntly. She had lived for so many years, and it was indeed the first time she had eaten such delicious food. Di Xiaofeng nodded. "It's really delicious." As he spoke, Di Xiaofeng's chopsticks didn't stop moving. From his performance, it could be seen how delicious the food was. Seeing Di Xiaofeng and Lin Yunqing's appearance, Bailey Hongzhuang's eyes also revealed a deep smile of joy. "As long as you like it." Xiaohei also felt a little hungry after seeing Di Xiaofeng eating heartily. It hadn't eaten much of its master's food before. It really wanted to try it. "Master, this is a medicinal cuisine. Is it okay for Di Xiaofeng to eat like this?" Xiaohei couldn't help but ask. "It's okay," Bailey Hongzhuang replied. "These herbs are used to nourish. With these ingredients, the effect is relatively mild. Anyone can eat it." Dr. Wu was originally very curious about the taste of Bailey Hongzhuang's dishes. At this moment, hearing Di Xiaofeng and Lin Yunqing's praises, the curiosity in his heart couldn't help but grow stronger. "Madam, young master." Dr. Wu slowly walked in. His eyes quietly fell on the medicinal cuisine. Bailey Hongzhuang. Lin Yunqing also extended an invitation. During this period of time, Dr. Wu had also spent a lot of energy on her illness. He basically stayed in her courtyard all day long. In fact, she was very clear in her heart that Dr. Wu had always wanted to make her a medical examiner, but she didn't cooperate. Chapter 4604. After Dr. Wu tasted it, his reaction wasn't any better than Di Xiaofeng's. It's so delicious. This is the first time I've tasted it. I can't feel the medicinal herbs inside at all. It's as if it has completely merged with the ingredients. Dr. Wu exclaimed, second, Miss Ying, your culinary skills are really amazing. Seeing that Dr. Wu almost spilled the beans, Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Xiaofeng were both stunned. Fortunately, Dr. Wu reacted quickly and immediately covered it up. Lin Yinqing also had some doubts when she heard Dr. Wu's words, but she didn't take it to heart. Instead, she asked, "This is medicinal cuisine, madam. Miss Ying knows that you've been drinking medicine these days and must be very repulsed by it, so she thought of a way to make this medicinal cuisine." Dr. Wu explained. Hearing this, the surprise in Lin Yunqing's eyes deepened. She was already very surprised when she knew that Bailey Hongzhuang specially prepared this meal for her. She didn't expect that there was such a reason behind it, and couldn't help but feel even more touched. Ying, thank you so much. At this moment, she really didn't know what to say to express her gratitude and love. Madam, you're too polite. Bailey Hongzhuang smiled. If you really want to thank me, then relax and get better quickly. Di Xiaofeng also said, That's right, mother. You still have a lot of things to do. You must get better. Hearing this, Lin Yunqing's gaze wandered between Di Xiaofeng and Bailey Hongzhuang for a moment. She was already thinking of other things in her mind. Okay, Lin Yunqing nodded. Although she still felt very guilty towards Di Beichun, she also knew that she didn't care much for Di Xiaofeng all these years. Perhaps she could accompany Beichun later. At the very least, she had to insist on seeing Xiaofeng's wedding. Fortunately, Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichun didn't know what Lin Yunqing was thinking at this moment. Otherwise, they would definitely be embarrassed. This was too messy. Very quickly, the dishes were all swept away, leaving behind the clean plates that couldn't be any cleaner. Di Xiaofeng rubbed his stomach with satisfaction. Today's meal was really satisfying. Although Dr. Wu didn't speak, his satisfied expression made it clear what he was thinking. Di Beichun had been standing in the courtyard waiting for Di Xiaofeng and Bailey Hongzhuang to come out. When he saw the two figures, he couldn't help but smile and ask, "How does it taste?" "Second brother, you've really married a treasure." Emperor Xiaofeng sighed. Sister-in-law's culinary skills are really too good. Compared to her, I feel that the so-called delicacies I've eaten before are simply dregs. Big brother, you flatter me. Bailey Hongzhuang smiled and shook her head. However, Di Xiaofeng's expression was serious. Sister-in-law, I'm not praising you on purpose. Everything I said is true. While they were talking, another group of distinguished guests arrived at the Di family. As soon as Lin Wenlan arrived at the Di family, she hurriedly walked inside. The cultivators of the Di family all knew that she was the family head's in-law, so how could they dare to neglect her? In fact, they did not even dare to stop them, and allowed Lin Wenlan and the others to directly rush in. Immediately, they could only hurriedly inform the family head. Di Yujue rushed over as soon as he heard the news. When Lin Wenlan saw Di Yujue, the anger in her heart rushed up. Chapter 4605. Lin Wenlan only had one precious daughter, Lin Yinqing. He had treated her like the apple of his eye since she was young. Back then, there had been so many talented young men who had pursued Lin Yinqing, but he had not taken a fancy to any of them. He felt that it would be a loss for his precious daughter to marry anyone. In the end, Di Yujue and Lin Yinqing were in love with each other, so he had agreed. Although he had agreed, he did not have a good impression of this stinking brat. After all, he had kidnapped his precious daughter. Fortunately, Di Yujue was also an outstanding genius and was very sincere to Yinqing, so he had agreed. Initially, after Di Xiaofeng and Di Beichun had been born one after the other, he had gradually found this son-in-law pleasing to the eye. However, he never thought that this stupid son-in-law would actually lose his precious grandson. Such a bizarre thing had actually happened. When he had first heard about it, he had not dared to believe it at all. However, it was all true, and he was about to die from anger. Ever since this incident had happened, Everyone had fallen into torment. Ever since Lin Yunqing had been born, he had not been willing to let his precious daughter shed a single tear. However, Yunqing had washed her face with tears every day, and he could not do anything about it. Needless to say, he was very depressed. Not long ago, he had found out that this stupid son-in-law had finally found traces of his grandson. However, before he could rejoice for a moment, he had found out that his precious grandson had fallen, and the culprit was the D family's housekeeper. When he had found out about this, he had almost died from anger. Most importantly, his daughter had fallen ill because of this grievous news, and her days were numbered. His heartache could not be expressed in words. If he had known this earlier, he would never have married Lin Yunqing to Di Yujue. Unfortunately, things had already come to this point. Even if he regretted it, it was useless. Yunqing's condition has improved slightly. If it had been anyone else who had scolded Di Yujue as a stinking brat, he would have crippled that person immediately. However, the person who had scolded him was his father-in-law, so Di Yujue could only obediently accept the scolding. In fact, in these years, every time he saw Lin Wenlan, he would inevitably be scolded. Improved, Lin Wenlan scoffed coldly. It's all your fault. If it had not been for you, how could Yunqing have ended up like this? When he thought of the suffering his daughter had suffered all these years, he really wanted to hit her. However, he also knew that although Yunqing had been suffering because of Beichun, she had always had Di Yujue in her heart. Previously, everyone had seen her feelings for Di Yujue. If that wasn't the case, Lin Yunqing wouldn't have kept rejecting his offer to bring Lin Yunqing back. Father-in-law, Yunqing's condition is gradually improving. I believe she will recover in a few days. Di Yujue hurriedly said. Recover? Lin Wenlan was furious. You've already sent back news that Yunqing can't hold on any longer. Even Dr. Wu has tried everything, but it's useless. Do you think I'll believe what you're telling me now? It's useless to say more unless you can find Beichun and bring him back. But now it's meaningless. If Yunqing really dies because of this, I won't let you off. Old master. Yunishan could not help but speak up to dissuade Lin Wenlan when she saw him scolding Di Yujue nonstop. Her old man had always been like this. As long as he had anything to do with Yunqing, he would become like this. Chapter 4606. After listening to Yin Ishan's words, Lin Wenlan's tone became slightly more restrained. However, he really couldn't take this lying down. He only had one precious daughter. If something happened to her, what should he do? He had been so anxious and worried all the way here. Since things have come to this, don't blame Yujue anymore. He didn't want this to happen. Yin Ishan sighed. She felt helpless and distressed about this matter. However, she knew that Yujue didn't want this to happen. Moreover, didn't they find out that it was all a conspiracy? This proved that Di Yujue didn't end up like this because he was careless, but because he was set up by someone. Father-in-law, mother-in-law. Actually, Di Yujue was about to explain to them that Beichun was back and all the problems were solved. However, Lin Wenlan was obviously not interested in listening to him and said directly, Let's go and see Yunqing first. Di Beichun and Di Xiaofeng walked outside after leaving Lin Yunqing's courtyard. They came back in a hurry yesterday. In addition, his grandfather and grandmother put all their attention on Di Beichun. He didn't even have a chance to have a good chat with his father. He should take this opportunity to go over. However, halfway through the journey, Di Beichun found that Di Yujue was being scolded by an elder. He didn't even have the slightest chance to talk back. Moreover, he had to wear a smile on his face. Given Di Yujue's status, it was simply impossible for something like this to happen. Di Beichun looked at the scene in front of him in astonishment. He thought of the elder's identity. Di Xiaofeng also sighed after noticing this scene. Second brother, now that you've seen it with your own eyes, you know that I didn't lie to you before, right? All these years, grandfather and maternal grandfather have been like this every time they see father. Thinking about it, it's not easy for father. Di Xiaofeng knew his maternal grandfather very well. His maternal grandfather's love for his mother had reached the level of insanity. Therefore, one could imagine the pressure his father had to bear. Hearing this, Di Beichen also knew that his guess was right. The elder in front of him was his maternal grandfather. However, when he heard Di Xiaofeng mention it to him, he didn't directly feel it. Now that he saw it with his own eyes, he couldn't help but be stunned. Di Yujue was really helpless. His explanation was abruptly interrupted by his father-in-law. He simply didn't say anything. His father-in-law would naturally figure everything out later. "Grandfather, grandmother, you're here." Di Xiaofeng's face revealed a happy smile. He immediately pulled Di Beichen Ant's hands quickly. After seeing Di Xiaofeng, a smile suddenly appeared on Lin Wenlan's face. That loving look was a completely different person from her previous serious look. "Xiaofeng, you're back too," Di Xiaofeng replied. "I came back not long ago." Lin Wenlan nodded slightly. "With such a big thing happening at home, you should indeed come back. Your mother's health isn't good now. If you have time, spend more time with her and let her relax." "Yes, grandfather." While speaking, Lin Wenlan's gaze couldn't help but fall on Di Beichen, who was beside Di Xiaofeng. Chapter 46:07. He had long known about his grandson's appearance. Ordinary young people would inevitably be overshadowed when standing beside Di Xiaofeng. However, the young man in front of him looked even younger than Di Xiaofeng, but standing next to him, he was on par with Di Xiaofeng. His elegance was not hidden at all. Not only that, but he also felt that he saw a familiar shadow on this young man. On the side, Yunishan was also looking at Di Beichen. This was a young man who could not be ignored at a glance. He had a handsome appearance and an otherworldly temperament. Standing beside Di Xiaofeng, he was like a brother. The strangest thing was that she could vaguely see Lin Yunqing's shadow on this young man's face. She couldn't pinpoint exactly where they resembled each other, but there were some similarities in their eyebrows and eyes. She was curious about this young man at the first moment. Lin Wenlan and Yunishan had not seen Di Beichen's portrait before, or they would have recognized him at first glance. "Xiaofeng, this young man is?" Lin Wenlan asked slowly. For some reason, he liked this young man very much at first sight. Hearing Lin Wenlan's question, Di Xiaofeng was slightly taken aback. "Grandfather, you still don't know who he is?" Lin Wenlan frowned slightly. "This is my first time seeing this young man. How would I know who he is?" While saying that, Lin Wenlan secretly cursed in his heart. Could this young man be a young talent from some family? How did he not notice? Hearing this, Di Xiaofeng could not help but laugh. "Ha! Grandfather, the precious grandson you've been thinking about all these years is here." He thought that his grandfather already knew this news, but he did not expect him to ask such a question. He could not help but feel that it was very interesting. Following Di Xiaofeng's words, Lin Wenlan and Yunishan were both taken aback. They did not immediately understand what Di Xiaofeng meant. However, after they understood the meaning, their expressions could not help but change. They widened their eyes and looked at Di Beichen in disbelief. "You mean he is Beichen?" Yunishan could not help but ask. Although this sentence was full of uncertainty, she felt that the young man in front of her was more and more like a combination of Lin Yunqing and Di Yujue. When she saw him before, she felt that he was very familiar, but her rationality told her that it was impossible. Now, after hearing this news, she completely understood that this young man was Di Beichen. Di Xiaofeng smiled and nodded. "Yes, Beichen is back. Grandfather already sent someone to send the news back. Don't you know?" Yunishan shook her head. "Maybe we missed it on the way." They had been on their way here before. Although the two families had a lot of contact, the distance between them wasn't close. It would take a long time to travel, so it was normal for them to miss each other along the way. In the next second, Yin Ishan and Lin Wenlan could not help but step forward and quickly walk to Di Beichen's side. The two elders could not hide the excitement on their faces. They stared at Di Beichen excitedly. "Beichen, you are really Beichen. Grandfather, grandmother," Di Beichen called out. Chapter 46:08. Hearing Di Beichen's voice, Lin Wenlan and Yun Yishan could not help but look at each other, their eyes filled with ecstasy. Beichen is really back. All these years, they had been looking forward to finding their lost grandson. However, every time they received news, they were disappointed. They didn't expect that their dream would finally come true. Good boy, it's good that you're back. The two elders' eyes were slightly wet, and their emotions were complicated. For a moment, they did not know what to say. This surprise came too suddenly. It was as if the things in their dreams had suddenly become reality. For a moment, they were doubting whether this was a dream or reality. When did Beichun come back? Lin Wenlan asked with a smile. Originally, when he came to the Di family, he was full of anger, but now that he saw Di Beichun, his anger quietly dissipated. He just came back yesterday, Di Beichun replied. Yin Yishan was unwilling to let go of Di Beichun's hand, as if she let go, her grandson would run away. Beichun, have you been suffering out there all these years? Her gentle voice was full of love and concern, but more than that, heartache. Grandmother, I've been living very well. I haven't suffered, Di Beichun replied with a smile. If in the past he felt that he was abandoned by his family and was an orphan and felt lonely and sad, now he only felt that he was really lucky. His master raised him and had never mistreated him, and his family cared for him so much. Since yesterday, he felt that this might be the arrangement of God. If he did not go to the lower realm because of the accident, how could he have met Hong Zhuang? In comparison, he felt that the current situation was the best arrangement of God. How could you not have suffered? Yin Yishan sighed, and her eyes were full of love. But it's good that you're back now. It was impossible for a child to live a lonely life without suffering. However, looking at Di Beichun's current appearance, she knew that Beichun had grown up well. Grandfather, grandmother, you don't have to worry anymore. Now that Beichun is back, mother's heart will be cured. Di Xiaofeng comforted. Lin Wenlan nodded. She couldn't help but glance at Di Yujue, frowning. Beichun has already returned. Why didn't you tell us earlier? You made us worry. Listening to Lin Wenlan's words, Di Yujue was also depressed. He clearly wanted to say it several times, but she kept interrupting him. Okay? Now, you're blaming me for all of this. Even though he was speechless, Di Yujue could only endure the scolding. Who asked the other party to be his father-in-law? No matter what the other party said, he could only listen. Looking at their father's sullen appearance, Di Xiaofeng and Di Beichun couldn't help but look at each other. They wanted to help, but couldn't. However, now that Beichun was back, everything was gradually getting better. When mother recovered, everything would be better. Di Linxian and Xiao Wanrong immediately rushed over after hearing that Lin Wenlan and the others had come. Compared to the unhappiness when they met in the past, everyone's mood was undoubtedly much better this time. Old man Lin, we finally found Beichun. Now, we don't have to glare at each other as soon as we meet. Chapter 4609. In the beginning, the relationship between the two of them was quite good, but because of these things, they contacted less. Now that Beichun was back, the knot in their hearts could be completely untied. When Lin Wenlan came, she wanted to seek justice, but at this moment, she was only thinking about Di Beichun, and the joy in her eyes could not be concealed at all. Compared to this, nothing else was important. How is Yun Qing now? Lin Wenlan asked aloud. Yun Qing's condition is gradually improving, and Beichun's wife is now taking care of her. However, Yun Qing's body is relatively weak, and she is worried that Beichun's sudden appearance will surprise her too much to bear, so she hasn't seen Beichun yet. However, according to Hong Zhuang, these 2 days will be enough, Xiao Wanrong said with a smile. Beichun's wife? Yin Yishan's eyes lit up, and a strong excitement appeared on her face. Yes. Xiao Wanrong walked to Yin Yishan's side and said with a smile, Hong Zhuang is a rare beauty, and she is also a very powerful doctor. Beichun's cursed body was cured by Hong Zhuang. If it weren't for Hong Zhuang, we wouldn't be able to see Beichun now. I didn't expect to have a granddaughter-in-law so soon, it's really a surprise. The joy on Yun Ishan's face became more and more intense. In the past few years, she and Xiao Wanrong had the same thoughts, and they both hoped that Di Xiaofeng could get married soon. After all, as long as Di Xiaofeng got married and gave birth to a great-grandson, this would add a little joy to the family, and maybe Yin Qing's mood would be eased after seeing her grandson. However, Di Xiaofeng didn't seem to have this idea, and they were very helpless. They didn't expect that in the blink of an eye, Beichen was already married. So how could they not be happy? Yes, as long as you see Hong Zhuang, you will like her very much. Xiao Wanrong said, let's go to Yunqing's residence first. You should also see your granddaughter-in-law. As they spoke, Xiao Wanrong and Yun Ishan walked forward together. There were always more topics to talk about between women. Wanrong, Beichen's constitution has already transformed into a heavenly mandate constitution, right? Yin Ishan and Xiao Wanrong looked at each other, and a complicated look flashed across their eyes. Xiao Wanrong nodded slightly with understanding in her eyes, but she did not say much on this topic. When Lin Wenlan and Di Lin Xian saw that Yin Ishan and Di Lin Xian had already set off, they followed behind them slowly. However, Lin Wenlan's attention was always on Di Beichen. He hadn't seen his grandson for so many years. Now he just wanted to take a closer look at him, as if he couldn't get enough of him. Ying, recently, Xiaofeng has always liked to stay outside. I haven't seen him many times. What do you think of him now? Have there been any rumors about him outside? Lin Yunqing's face rippled with a faint, gentle smile as she asked Bailey Hongzhuang indirectly. Now, she liked Bailey Hongzhuang more and more. She only felt that if Bailey Hongzhuang could be her daughter-in-law, it would be the best thing. Bailey Hongzhuang didn't realize this, and only thought that Lin Yunqing was curious about Di Xiaofeng's situation outside these years. However, she also didn't know much about Di Xiaofeng. Xiaofeng is naturally a very good person. He is very loyal and has many friends. I just came to the upper realm from the lower realm not long ago, so I'm not very clear about many things. Chapter 46:10. Listening to Bailey Hongzhuang's words, the smile in Lin Yunqing's eyes gradually deepened. She was very confident in her son. Among the young talents of a younger generation, there would definitely be a place for Di Xiaofeng. Although old Madam had mentioned many young ladies to her before, she wasn't sure what their characters were like. On the contrary, she was very satisfied with Bailey Hongzhuang in front of her. She was not picky at all. Although her body wasn't very good right now, her eyesight was still very good. With one look, she could tell that Bailey Hongzhuang wasn't pretending. This girl's character and conduct were very good. The only thing was that she was from the lower realm. However, she did not have any family background, so she did not feel that it was a big problem. Just as they were talking, suddenly, there was a sound of footsteps outside the door. Lin Yunqing turned to look outside. However, as she was half lying on the bed, she could not see the real situation in the courtyard. She was curious about who had come at this time. My courtyard seems to be very lively today. Lin Yunqing's lips curled into a faint smile. Usually, her place was always quiet, and almost no one came back. She did not expect many people to come over these 2 days. Bailey Hongzhuang was also puzzled as she looked outside, her heart filled with curiosity. Who would come at this time? Logically speaking, Beichen could not come to see Mother now, so no one else should come. Just as the two of them were puzzled, the sound of footsteps came closer. Then, several figures appeared in front of them. Yin Ishan saw Lin Yunqing at first glance. She immediately walked over and stood by her bed. Bailey Hongzhuang did not know who had come, but when she saw that Di Lin Xian and Xiao Wanrong had come, she knew that the madam in front of her was not ordinary. She immediately took a few steps back and gave up her position. Looking at Lin Yunqing's pale face, Yin Ishan's eyes were filled with heartache. She asked with concern, Yunqing, we haven't seen each other for a while. How did you become so weak? Mother, I'm fine. Lin Yunqing looked at Yin Ishan in surprise. Why are you and father here today? Your condition is already so serious. How can your father and I not come? Yin Ishan sighed, and she could not help but feel heartache as she said, "Look at you. You've become so thin. Don't just think about yourself. You have to think about me and your father. If you're gone, what will your father and I do?" Her daughter had never suffered much since she was young. She suddenly regretted that she shouldn't have spoiled her too much in the past. If it wasn't for that, perhaps she wouldn't have become like this. Hearing this, Lin Yunqing felt a little guilty. "Mother, it was my fault." Yin Yishan shook her head and sighed, but she still couldn't bring herself to reprimand her daughter. She held her hand and said, "You have to look on the bright side. Maybe you'll be reunited with Beichen one day." Reunite? Lin Yunqing was slightly stunned. The matter of Beichen's death was already set in stone. There was no such possibility. However, in the past 2 days, both Bailey Hongzhuang and Yin Yishan had mentioned this matter to her. Could it be that there was still a chance? Chapter 46:11. Hearing Lin Yunqing's words, Yin Yishan's expression changed a little. She could not help but look at Xiao Wanrong and the others. She had accidentally brought up this topic, so she didn't know how to answer him. Seeing this, Di Xiaofeng quickly said, "Mother, we went to Rome and city where Beichen was previously to investigate, but we did not know for sure that Beichen had fallen. Therefore, we all feel that the situation might not be as bad as we thought. Beichen might still be alive." "Is this true?" Lin Yunqing was surprised and looked at Yin Yishan and the others with a burning gaze. Xiao Wanrong smiled and said, "It's true. So Yunqing, don't lose hope because of this. If Beichen comes back one day, you still have to welcome him." "You're not lying to me?" Lin Yunqing asked uncertainly. Previously, Di Kaiyuan had explained this matter clearly and completely destroyed the last trace of luck in her heart. It was because of this that she had fallen into deep despair. She did not expect everyone to give her a glimmer of hope now. "No," Yin Yishan replied. "Why would we lie to you about this?" "Yunqing, this news is indeed true." Di Linxian also said. Hearing Di Linxuan's affirmative answer, the light in Lin Yunqing's eyes became brighter. With Di Linxuan's identity, he definitely would not lie to her. Thinking that Beichen might still be alive, she could not help but rejoice. Now, she did not have many extravagant wishes. The only thing she hoped for was that Beichen was still alive. That's good, that's good." Lin Yunqing heaved a sigh of relief. She only felt that her spirit was much better. When Di Yujue arrived, his gaze had always been on Lin Yunqing. During this period of time, he rarely appeared in front of Lin Yunqing. However, he would come to see her every night. When he saw Lin Yunqing's face that was getting thinner day by day, his heart ached. However, he noticed that Lin Yunqing's complexion was much better today, unlike her usual appearance. Suddenly, he looked at Bailey Hongzhuang with a trace of admiration and amazement. He had heard from Di Xiaofeng that Yin Qing's condition was improving, but after seeing it with his own eyes, he couldn't help but sigh. He didn't expect Bailey Hongzhuang to have such outstanding medical skills at such a young age. If they hadn't seen it with their own eyes, most people wouldn't have believed it. "Father, mother, since you've come this time, stay here for a few more days." Lin Yunqing's eyes were filled with anticipation. She truly hoped that they could stay and accompany her. Hearing this, Lin Wenlan smiled and nodded. "Okay, this time we were planning to stay here for a while." Their grandson and granddaughter-in-law had finally returned, so they naturally had to get along well. However, staying here for 1 or 2 days was obviously not enough. Moreover, they wanted to see Yun Qing's body get better bit by bit and see Yun Qing and Beichen reunite. Seeing that Lin Wenlan had agreed so readily, a trace of astonishment appeared in Lin Yunqing's eyes. In the past, when she had made such a request, Lin Wenlan basically wouldn't agree. Although the two families were in-laws, it wasn't a good thing to stay here for too long. She didn't expect her to agree so easily this time. However, on second thought, Lin Yunqing felt that it was because of her current condition. Chapter 46:12. After chatting with Lin Yunqing for a while, Yin Yishan turned her gaze to Bailey Hongzhuang. In fact, she had noticed Bailey Hongzhuang from the moment she stepped into the room. Such a beautiful woman was impossible to ignore. She was like the sun, an existence that people would notice at a glance. This feeling was as dazzling and eye-catching as when they first saw Bewitching. As early as on the way here, Xiaowan Rong had already told her that her granddaughter-in-law was taking care of Yinqing. Therefore, as long as she thought about it, she knew that this young and beautiful girl was Di Beichen's wife. What a beautiful lady! Yin Yishan looked at Bailey Hongzhuang with a smile, her gaze gentle and kind. Lin Yunqing's face was also filled with an appreciative smile. Mother, Yingying is really beautiful. When I first saw her, I couldn't believe that there was such a beautiful lady in this world. Yin Yishan nodded slightly. In fact, Lin Yunqing was also a rare beauty, but Lin Yunqing and Bailey Hongzhuang were two completely different types of beauty. Lin Yunqing's beauty was gentle, scholarly, and reasonable, like an ink painting. Bailey Hongzhuang's beauty was incomparably exquisite, but there was also a trace of heroic spirit in her beauty, showing her strength and perseverance. Yin Yishan had seen countless people and could tell at a glance that although Bailey Hongzhuang was young, she had her own opinions. Although it was easy for people to treat her as a vase with her outstanding appearance, in fact, she had her own persistence and was definitely not just for show. I heard that it was because you took good care of Yinqing that her condition gradually improved. Yin Yishan stepped forward and took Bailey Hongzhuang's hand. What a good lady! Bailey Hongzhuang already knew that this was Di Beichen's grandmother. She secretly sighed in her heart. This was really a family with strong genes. Everyone was outstanding. This is what I should do. It must have been hard on you to take care of Yinqing. Yin Yishan smiled kindly, her gentle gaze filled with affection. This was the first time she had met Bailey Hongzhuang, but she had heard that Beichen's physique had been transformed by her. If it weren't for Bailey Hongzhuang, they would never have seen Beichen again. Therefore, she was very grateful to Bailey Hongzhuang. In fact, anyone who saw such an excellent and outstanding girl would like her. Lin Yunqing looked at her mother in surprise. She knew Yin Yishan's character very well. Logically speaking, even if Bailey Hongzhuang took good care of her, she would not be so kind. This attitude was completely inconsistent with her usual personality. However, when he thought about how he liked Bailey Hongzhuang inexplicably when he had just met her, perhaps his mother was in the same situation. Perhaps this was Bailey Hongzhuang's magic. She had a kind of magic that made people like her at first sight. Lin Wenlan was relieved when he saw that Lin Yunqing's condition was not as bad as he had thought. Looking at the situation, she was indeed gradually recovering. Old man Lin, you should be relieved now, right? Di Lin Xian said with a smile. Lin Wenlan nodded, but his expression was still solemn, as usual. Back then, when I married Yinqing and your family, I wanted her to live a good life. Who would have thought that she would suffer so much all these years? Don't worry, it won't happen again, Di Lin Xian quickly said. Chapter 46:13. Everyone stayed in Lin Yunqing's room for a while before leaving. Bailey Hongzhuang also sent them out of the room. Di Beichen had been standing in the courtyard, so he could vaguely hear some of the voices in the room. When he heard that Lin Yunqing was still so concerned about his situation, his heart was gradually touched. He suddenly hoped to see Lin Yunqing soon and let her know that he was still alive so that she could be completely relieved. As soon as they arrived at the courtyard, Yin Yishan looked at Bailey Hongzhuang in surprise. This is my precious granddaughter-in-law. Xiao Wanrong smiled and nodded. Isn't she? You like her as soon as you see her, right? Indeed. Yin Yishan smiled kindly and brightly. One look and I can tell that she's a good girl. Beichen really has good taste. At the same time, Di Beichen also walked to Bailey Hongzhuang and said with a smile, Hongzhuang, this is grandfather and grandmother. Grandfather, grandmother. Bailey Hongzhuang bowed and greeted. Yes. Yin Yishan responded with satisfaction and reached out to help Bailey Hongzhuang up. What good child. Lin Wenlan also looked at Di Beichen and Bailey Hongzhuang with a smile. These two children really match each other when they stand together. Bei-chun, tell grandfather about your experience over the years. Over the years, we've been worried about whether you're doing well. Fortunately, you're very capable and came back safely. We're really happy. Lin Wenlon's gaze was soft, and his voice was full of concern. From the moment he knew that Di Bei-chun had come back, his heart was boiling. That kind of excitement could not be expressed in words. However, he, who had always been serious, did not know how to express his feelings. He was just eager to know how Bei-chun had lived over the years. Yin-ching still needs to rest. I think it's better to go to our place and have a good chat with Bei-chun. What do you think? Di Lin-xian said. Okay, Lin Wenlon agreed. Bei-chun just came back yesterday, and we didn't know the specific situation. Today, let's listen to Bei-chun's previous experience together, Xiao Wanrong said with a smile. Everyone nodded. They were really curious about Bei-chun's past. What Diu Jue had said before was just some general information. As for the specific situation, they were completely unaware. They had only found their precious grandson after so many years. It was impossible for them to participate in Di Bei-chun's previous life, but at least they hoped to know more about it. Di Bei-chun didn't have any objections. He understood that the elders in his family were very concerned about him, so he was naturally happy to talk about his past. Granddaughter-in-law, why don't you come with us? Yin Yishan held Bailey Hongzhuang's hand and said with a smile. Bailey Hongzhuang glanced at everyone and said with a smile, Grandmother, you all go ahead. I still have to take care of Mother. Hearing that, Yin Yishan frowned slightly. She looked at Bailey Hongzhuang and then looked at Lin Yunqing's house with a complicated expression. It's okay. Bailey Hongzhuang smiled faintly. Grandfather and grandmother will stay here for a while. When Mother's condition improves, it won't be too late for us to talk about it together. Hearing Bailey Hongzhuang's words, Yin Yishan and the others couldn't help but look more gentle. They didn't expect Bailey Hongzhuang to be so sensible. How could they not like her? Chapter 46:14. Hongzhuang is really a good girl. Yin Yishan and Xiao Wanrong walked together and could not help but sigh with emotion. In fact, with the degree of love they had for their grandson, they must have certain requirements for their granddaughter-in-law. However, after seeing Bailey Hongzhuang, they could not find anything they were dissatisfied with. Yes, Xiao Wanrong also nodded. Hongzhuang is not only very considerate, but also has outstanding medical skills. Although she is from the lower realm, she is not petty at all. On the contrary, there is a sense of generosity in her. Usually, according to their understanding, when a cultivator from the lower realm suddenly became the daughter-in-law of an aristocratic family from the upper realm, there must be a trace of worry and panic in her heart. However, since Bailey Hongzhuang came to the Di family, they could not see this problem from her at all. On the contrary, Bailey Hongzhuang had always been neither servile nor overbearing. She did not feel weak because of her background, nor did she think highly of herself because of her family's kindness to Bei-chun. All of her performances were full of generosity. She was very polite to the elders and very considerate to Yunqing. All of these performances made them very satisfied. It is indeed very good that Bei-chun can find such a wife, but Yin Yishan looked at Xiao Wanrong with a complicated expression. They had to face the problem in this. Xiao Wanrong shook her head slightly. That matter is indeed very troublesome, but since it has come to this, let's just forget about it. Hearing this, Yin Yishan sighed. In the current situation, this is indeed the only way, but the consequences may be a little troublesome. There is no other way. Xiao Wanrong looked determined. It was as if she had already made up her mind. Bei-chun's return is already the happiest thing for us. Moreover, Hongzhuang's family has a great debt of gratitude to Bei-chun. We must not let Hongzhuang suffer. Di Linxian also thinks so? Yin Yishan could not help but ask. Yes, he values these debts of gratitude the most, so he has already made up his mind. Hearing this, Yin Yishan nodded. That's right. I also think that we should do that. As for the consequences, although it's troublesome, we can bear it. Many things are unavoidable. However, since things have come to this point, we can only do our best to minimize the impact. Di Bachin walked beside Di Yujue. It was only now that Di Yujue had a chance to talk to him properly. Bachin, are you used to living here? Di Yujue asked with concern in his eyes. It's pretty good. Di Bachin smiled faintly. Everyone prepared a place for us to stay. How could we not get used to it? Hong Zhuang and I both like it very much. That's good. Di Yujue smiled. If there's anything you're not used to, just tell us. We'll definitely help you solve it. You're a member of the D family, the second young master of the D family. Please don't treat me like an outsider. I understand. Di Bachin replied. When I was in the lower realm, I didn't expect you to be the person I've been looking for. It's really fate. Di Yujue could not help but sigh. When he first met Di Bachin, he had a very strange feeling. He did not expect that there was a blood relationship between them. Chapter 46:15. Suddenly hearing Di Bachin's words, Di Yujue was also slightly stunned. Then, his expression softened, and his heart was filled with joy and gratitude. Although he knew that his son had forgiven him from the moment Di Bachin called him father, the worry in his heart had never dissipated. If it weren't for his negligence back then, the other party wouldn't have had the opportunity to take advantage of him, and Bachin wouldn't have been away for so many years. Therefore, when he spoke to Di Bachin, he was always cautious and wasn't as comfortable as when he spoke to Xiao Wanrong and the others. At this moment, when he suddenly heard these words, he knew that Bachin was comforting him and telling him not to worry about the past. Thinking of this, he couldn't help but smile. Okay, Di Bachin smiled. The past is the past. The most important thing is that our family will be together in the future. That's right. Di Yujue nodded. We're still investigating what happened back then. As long as we find Di Kaiyuan's accomplice, we will definitely punish them severely. Bachin forgave him, but the murderer must be caught and severely punished. Since he dared to attack the direct descendant of the Di family, he must definitely make the other party pay a heavy price. Not only did the other party attack me, but they also attacked Big Brother. This matter indeed needs to be investigated thoroughly. Di Bachin's voice was slightly heavy. He already knew about Di Kaiyuan's matter, but his thoughts were the same as Di Xiaofeng and Di Yujue. This matter was definitely not as simple as it seemed. Compared to Di Kaiyuan, the accomplice might be the instigator. If they didn't find the other party, they would always be in a mystery. Indeed, there was a trace of haze between Di Xiaofeng's brows. The incident back then was still vivid in his mind. If it wasn't for his strength being stronger than the other party estimated, he would have died back then. Father, have you found out anything about this matter? Di Xiaofeng couldn't help but ask. Kaiyuan is already dead. It's very difficult to investigate this matter now. I investigated based on the people Kaiyuan often contacted before, but the other party was very secretive. I can only find a few clues. Now that I've set my sights on the Jun family, they're most likely the ones who want to make a move on the Di family. Di Xiaofeng's expression darkened. The Jun family has always been dissatisfied with our Di family's resources. Coupled with Bachin's cursed body, they are most likely the culprits. What does my cursed body have to do with them? Di Bachin was puzzled. He had heard the Jun family from Di Xiaofeng before, but why was it related to his physique? Bachin, you just came back, so you don't know enough about the family situation. I'll tell you everything in the next few days, Di Yujue said. All right, Di Bachin nodded. He also understood that this was not the right time to talk about this in detail. However, he didn't need to understand all of this. Whether it was enemies, friends, or the situation, he needed to know. And now, it was obvious that the elders were more curious about his growth in life over the years. After Lin Wenlan and the others arrived, Lin Yunqing's mood was clearly better. Madam, you seem to be in a good mood. Bailey Hongzhuang smiled at Lin Yunqing. She could clearly feel that Lin Yunqing was in a very good state. You're tuning into the Romance Rendezvous YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.